Jesus is the kindest person I've ever met in my life. This is my testimony. You are the kindest person I ever met in my life. In your hiddenness, when you manifest, when you're all in all, when you're all I have, in the ebb and flow as we undulate, you'll never leave, you'll never forsake me. There's nothing I can bring, these empty hands are raised to worship you, my King, with a heart full of praise. This is my testimony. You are the kindest person I ever met in my life. When I wake, when I sleep, when I laugh and when I weep, when storms rage, friends falter, you stay the same. There's nothing I can bring, these empty hands I raise to worship you, my King, with a heart full of praise. This is my testimony. You are the kindest person I ever met in my life. I came to faith in Christ at the age of 30. And how that happens this way. God sent a young drummer to my band. He was a 20-year-old, rosy-faced young Christian boy. And I was a very successful musician and doing all the crazy stuff that musicians do. And I thought this young man wasn't having any fun. And so I did my best to corrupt him. But he just faithfully served God, and he faithfully served me. After a while, the peace that was on this young man's life started to irritate me. And I can remember to ask him all kinds of questions. And every time I'd speak to him, he'd say, look, it doesn't matter what my opinion is no better or worse than yours. But let me tell you what the Bible says. And so what intended to be an argument ended up being a Bible study. And a short while before God rescued me, my young friend, he went to the Lord in prayer, and he said, if you don't save this guy soon, I'm going to leave his band. And so God rescued me. And here I am. Now, when I got saved, I had very little education. I dropped out of school. I had the most amazing mother, just an incredible woman. She worked 2 jobs to put my brother and myself at school. She worked for a doctor as a receptionist in the daytime. She'd come home in the evenings. She'd have supper with us. And then she'd go out again. She'd go selling clothing door to door to put my brother and myself at school. Thank God for moms. And so I dropped out of school at the age of 16 to help the family, and for the next 14 years I lived this life of decadence as a rock and roll musician. And so when God got a hold of me, I was pretty much an airhead because of my lack of education, but I was full of the zeal of God, and I was one of those people somebody would call a Jesus freak, an absolute religious zealot. I wanted everyone to experience God the way I experienced Him. And so the first victim of my zeal was my mom. I can remember I drove up to my mom's house to go share the gospel with her. And in my ignorance, I said this to her. I said, Mom, I've got good news for you, and I've got bad news for you. She said, what's that, my boy? I said, well, Mom, the good news is I've got saved, I'm going to heaven, and the bad news is you're not, you're going to hell. Well, I've learned a few things walking with the Lord. I don't think God is remotely interested in how clever we are. I think God is far more interested in our faithfulness and our obedience. And my mom, she saw through my stupidity, and God touched her in any way, and she gave her life to Jesus right there and then. She served God for the rest of her days. The next victim of my zeal was a friend of mine who fixed up buildings for a living. There's a big construction company. So I thought I'd write a song for him to let him know what God had done for me on the inside, a song called Interior Decorator. Interior decorator, oh what a perfect creator. I know I'm not much on the outside, inside I'm a brand new man. I got to recreate the spirit, this old body got life within it. I know I'm not much on the outside, inside I'm a brand new man who knows but doesn't quite understand what's going on. Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. You say he's a little bit crazy, you say what you like, nothing can faze me. I know that I know that I know you'll never change my mind, and I don't claim to understand it. Interior decorator planet, I know I'm not much on the outside, inside I'm a brand new man who knows but doesn't quite understand what's going on. Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. What's going on? Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. What's going on? Can't stop it, I'm falling in love. So there I was, this 30-year-old regenerated hippie. And I'd never done honest day's work in my life. All I could do is sing and write songs. And so I didn't know God was going to provide for me and my family. I thought maybe God would take me from being a successful secular musician and make me a successful Christian one. Well, for the next 19 years, I never sang in public. During that time, God was preparing me for this time. At the age of 49, God called me to ministry, and I've been traveling around the world ever since then, just sharing the goodness of God wherever anyone will listen. Now, during those 19 years, even though I wasn't singing or performing in public, I had a reputation in the country where I live of being a good singer and songwriter, and so I started being commissioned to write songs for television commercials and for movies. So we can have a commercial break now. And play you one of the commercials I did. You can play the first one, please.
The days of my life, I recall the faces, mostly yours. Magic moments, life was a mystery. There's no place on earth that we'd rather be. Moving up, going through some changes, storing up the memories. Then you gave me the light of my life. I always gave the best I could give. Passing on the memories.
Well, that was the first of many television commercials that I sang and wrote. But that one has an interesting story attached to it. The advertising agency had spent a few million making that commercial, much longer than most commercials. And they'd wanted to use a Beatles song for the soundtrack. And so the ad agency negotiated with the Beatles publishers to use one of their songs. After a while, I found out they couldn't afford the Beatles, so they came to me. God good? I have a fantastic family. God has blessed me. I have a wonderful wife. I have 4 children and 3 grandchildren, and we've been on a journey. I'm going to share some of that journey with you this evening. The song I'm going to sing for you is a song I wrote for my daughter, my little girl. She's 40 now. Always be my little girl. A song called You and Me.
Got things to lose, we got things to gain. We see from different points of view. But when I look at your life, it's like deja vu. There's a little bit of you and me and you. You got me, I got you. Evening and morning make a day. When the sun comes up somewhere it fades away. All depends upon your point of view. But when I look at your life, it's like deja vu. There's a little bit of you in me and you. You got me, I got you. Only need to whisper, you only need to drop the hints. You only need to look my way for me to know what you're thinking. That's the way it is between me and you. You got me, I got you. You and me, we're made the same. We got things to lose, we got things to gain. We see from different points of view. But when I look at your life, it's like deja vu. There's a little bit of you in me and you. You got me, I got you.
When my oldest son was born, I had an understanding of a father's love for a child. Our dads are meant to teach us how to be fathers. My dad left home when my mom was pregnant with me. And when my oldest son was born, it was 3 years before I became a Christian. It was this point in my life that I believed that God took a hold of my heart, started revealing himself to me as my father. My dad lived 1,000 miles away from where I live, and as I mentioned, as a young man, was a very well-known musician. And so I had a number of albums out, and my music would be played on the radio. And my name would be in the newspaper from doing stuff that musicians do from time to time. And so I tour around South Africa promoting my music. And every year I'd go through the town where my dad lived. So it was my intention one day to meet him, start a relationship with him. This went on for a number of years. Every year the same resolve. This would be the year that I'd meet my dad. One day I got the call to tell me my father was dead. And so I had to go bury him. And I got to the funeral. It was a very strange, surreal experience. I was a stranger at my own father's funeral. I knew nobody there. I asked my uncle I'd met if I could see my father's body. I wanted to see what he looked like. I had no idea what he looked like. I'd never seen any pictures of him. So my uncle informed me my dad had drunk himself to death and that he looked awful. And so I never got to see my father. My dad was a school teacher. He was a substitute relief teacher. One of those teachers go from one school to the next when there's need of a teacher. So he never lived in the house. He lived in a hotel room. And so I went to my father's hotel room to go see if I could find anything there that I could take home and show my family something of my dad's life. While I was looking through my father's belongings, I found a whole bunch of newspaper cuttings about myself. And there were letters from my school. My father had written to my school to find out how I was doing. And they'd responded. And so it turns out my dad had followed my whole life. And we never met. And so when my oldest son was born, I wrote this next song for him as a promise to him that I'd never do that to him.
I've got stars in my eyes. I've got so much love I can't disguise how I feel. Wanna do everything revolves around you, and your love set me free. Now I know how it feels to be alive. You got me on your side. You've got someone to confide in. I would never let you down. I will always be around, and your love let me go. Now I know how it feels to be alive. And all of the games that I used to play seem so far away. I was half, now I know I'm whole. You fill my heart, you fill my soul. And I've got stars in my eyes. I've got so much love I can't disguise how I feel. Wanna do everything revolves around you, and your love set me free. Now I know how it feels to be alive. I got stars in my eyes. I got so much love I can't disguise how I feel. What I do, everything revolves around you. Now I know how it feels to be alive.
At Nedbank, we treat all our clients, no matter how old they are, exactly the same. The reason for this is quite simple. We never know who they might become. Nedbank. Because if you're over 18, you'll want a bank, not a youth club.
Isn't that true? We never know what our children might become. My oldest son, who I wrote that song for, is a very gifted young man. He's one of those people, everyone in this room will know somebody like him. He's everybody's friend. He's a great sportsman. He was playing professional rugby when he was 19 years old. He gave his life to Christ when he was 15, and he was very much in love with God. And because of my son's sporting abilities, he got a scholarship to go to a very exclusive private school. At that school, as a young Christian man, my son thought he could do anything he liked with his life. And then he started experimenting with drugs. By the time my son was 21 years old, he was a crack cocaine addict. And he had a habit. It was costing me a huge amount of money. He stole most of what we had as a family to support his habit. We had drug dealers phoning our house, threatening to kill him. If we wouldn't pay them the money he owed him, and so we paid them. At one time I was out of town. My wife and my daughter had to go to a crack house to go and fetch my daughter's cell phone, which he'd sold to them. This is how we lived. It was during this time, I believe, we learned the most about our God. We learned the difference between Christian cliches and Christian reality. We began to understand what the peace of God is that transcends all understanding. Towards the end of this episode, my son, who had been this happy-go-lucky young man with everything going for him, would sit in a public toilet all night long smoking crack cocaine. Now, the nature of this drug is one of three things happen to you. You binge, you either run out of money, or you go into a drug-induced coma, or you die. So every night my son would go out. We'd never know if this would be the last time we'd ever see him. One evening, the strain of this became too much for my wife and myself. And so I took my son to a place called the Ark, which is a ministry for homeless people in the town where I live. I thought perhaps I could help my son there. I can remember the two of us were sitting outside in the street. It was 10:30 at night. It was pitch dark, and the two of us were sitting there. And I was about to drop him off, then just leave him there and wash my hands of him. And then God reminded me of the words in the song that I wrote for him when he was born, that I would never let him down. And so I turned the car around and I took my boy home. A short while after, God rescued him, and he's once again faithfully serving God, and he's the father of my 3 grandchildren. God is faithful. The song I'm going to sing for you is a song that I wrote while the storm was raging in the life of my family. It's a song called Get Over It. I was feeling really sorry for myself while I was writing the song. I had these images of holes everywhere. There's a hole in my soul, and a hole in the roof, and a hole in the floor, just holes everywhere. And God showed me a great thing.
Time to err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a hole in my soul, needs some fixing. There's a song in my head, need remixing. There's a hole in the roof, when the rain comes in. There's a crack in the floor, I keep falling in, but I'll get over it. It's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a dent in my pride, took a beating, we were on the same side. You were cheating, you were sleeping with dogs, picking up fleas, taking what you want, and never said please. I'll get over it, it's just a matter of time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. There's a hole in the dark where the light comes through. There's a hole in my shoe from following you. You got holes in your hands, holes in your feet, wounds on your back where they beat. There's blood on the tree, for you were ashamed for the crime of the world. You were blamed, and I'll never get over it. It's a mystery for all time. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Get over it, it's just a matter of to forgive is divine.
I was being interviewed on the radio some years back. It was a secular radio station, and the guy who was interviewing me was trying to get clever with me and make me look stupid. So he said this to me, he said, "Can you prove to me that God exists?" So I said, "Yes, my wife, she's living proof that God exists." So she is. She's a trophy of God's grace, God's greatest gift to me. It's a song I wrote for her called Living Proof.
I got a crush on you, babe. I start to guess when I speak your name. They told me the stuff wears out, so how come I still feel the same? From the day I set eyes on you, there was never a doubt. I always knew this is how it would be. I got you and you got me. You're living proof that God exists. How much He must love me. I can move a mountain, I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me. Infatuation, I don't think so anymore. We've been around the block a few times. Looks like we're going around some more. Knowing everything you knew, you still chose to see it through. You put your trust in me, and you saw all that I could be. You're living proof that God exists. How much You must love me. I can move a mountain, I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me. I believe in you and me. I believe in the family. I believe nothing happens by chance. I believe in this romance. You're living proof that God exists. How much He must love me. I can move a mountain, I can walk on the sea. You bring out the best in me.
You guys always this quiet in a civilized country. My youngest son, his name is Daniel. He's a very sweet young man. And he came to me one day when he was 13 or 14 years old, and he was very cross with me, and he was upset with me that I hadn't written a song for him yet. And so I wrote this next song for him, and I called him into my room to play the song for him. I can remember he sat at the foot of my bed, and I started singing the song to him, and got as far as the first chorus, and we both started crying. And so I said, "Dad," he said, "please take that song off the CD." He was very concerned what his friends were going to do to him when they heard his father singing him this love song. And so I told him I would take the song off the CD. A short while after that, one Sunday morning, I was singing in our local church. And my son was there with his 3 girlfriends. And he said to me, "Dad," he said, "if you play that song, I'll kill you." Well, I played it anyway. Unfortunately for me, 3 girlfriends, I went up to him after the meeting and I said, "You must be an amazing person for your father to speak of you this way." Jay came back to me and said I could put the song back on the CD, which is where it is. He's not stupid. But we parents, we go through a strange transition at around about this time in the life of our kids. When the kids are 9 or 10 years old, they look up to us as though we're God, and we can do nothing wrong. We can say nothing wrong. For some reason, I'll never figure out. They get to be about 13 or 14. And we parents, we wake up in the morning and we discover we know nothing anymore. It's a song called Daniel.
You may not understand the things I do. Know this one thing: what I do for you. I have no other motive. My heart is pure in an ever-changing world. Know this one thing for sure: Daniel, you are in my eyes, gift of God, the prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend, what you are worth. When I come home sometime, find you asleep, I sit by your side and ask my God to keep safe from harm, make you strong in an ever-changing world. Always somewhere you belong, Daniel, you are in my eyes, gift of God, the prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend, what you are worth. Just recently, I went from deity to knowing nothing at all. No more hugs, only handshakes. My biggest fan just became a man. Daniel, you are in my eyes, gift of God, the prize, my heavenly reward. Here on earth, you'll never know, my little friend, know, my little friend, what you are worth.
Well, I'm running out of family, so I'm... In that case, who would like a free CD? Who would like a free CD? Anybody want a free CD? At the very back, the guys doing the ladies doing the video stuff. You can have one. Anybody else want one? Yeah, this gentleman here. Come and grab it. There you go. Well, I'm almost done. Thanks so much for having me. I've got one more song for you. If you get the last little video clip ready, I'll tell you when to play it. Don't play it yet, okay? I get to travel around the world a lot. And I get to go to some weird and wonderful places. In August in 2005, I was singing at a drug rehab center in a country called Mozambique on the east coast of Africa. And immediately after singing at this place, I had to go to Texas in the United States to go sing in some prisons. I very much believe in the local church. And I like my church to know what I'm doing. I like to be accountable to them. They're my family. So I stopped off at my church on my way from Mozambique on my way to America to tell them where I'd been, where I was going. I stood up one morning and I said this to them. I said, I just got back from rehab and I'm off to prison. While I was in prison there, in Texas, a door was opened for me to go sing on death row. And there I became acquainted with a woman by the name of Frances Newton. She'd been on death row for 17 years. On the 14th of September that year, they executed her. And I had the enormous privilege of singing this next song to her before they put her to death. It's a song called Passing Through. I'm going to show you some pictures of a church inside that prison while I sing this song to you. If you could play the video clip now, please.
My eyes always look up to where my Redeemer comes from. My feet want to run to you, 'cause heaven is where we belong. We're just passing through. God's poetry in motion, made to worship you while we're passing through. When I look where I have come from, it's easy to see where I'm going to. I've learned the hard way, there is no easy way, so I'm gonna fix my eyes on you while I'm passing through. God's poetry in motion, made to worship you while we're passing through. There's no way I can conceive of all the good things you have prepared. Oh God, I'm in awe of you. I'll live my life happy, scared, while I'm passing through. God's poetry in motion, made to worship you while we're passing through, while we are passing through, while we are passing through.
Thank you. God bless you.